I'm Kelly, a 43-year-old mother of two, married to Larry, a kind man who's been my support for almost 22 years. Life's been full of ups and downs, but I've always believed that it's the people with you that make it bearable. That was until my brother Scott decided to take charge. Scott is 10 years younger than me, a whirlwind of bad decisions and wrong priorities. He's the kind of person who thinks the world owes him. Mom always said he'd grow out of it, but at 31 he's still the family's problem. It was a Sunday, the kind that calls for a family gathering at Mom's house. Her house was our safe place, full of childhood memories. As usual, Larry, the kids, and I were there, enjoying Mom's famous roast and her stories from the past. That's when Scott burst in like an unexpected storm. The door slammed against the wall, and he strutted in with a smug smile on his face. He wasn't alone. Clinging to his arm was a young woman, barely out of her teens, with a clearly pregnant belly and a dress more suited for a nightclub than a family lunch. Larry choked on his tea. Lauren, my 13-year-old, asked if she was going to be an aunt. Eric, the 10-year-old, was more interested in why Aunt Olivia's dress was so shiny. Family, meet Olivia, my fiancée, Scott announced, as if he was showing off a prize. Mom's fork dropped. Fiancé, Scott, we talked about this, she said. Olivia flipped her hair and gave us a look that could spoil milk. Yeah, we're getting married, and this little guy, she patted her belly, is Scott Jr. The room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking. Larry cleared his throat. Congratulations, Scott. That's big news, Scott smirked. We're staying here for a while, till we get our own place. Mom tried to smile, but I saw the worry in her eyes. It was like watching someone set up camp at the edge of a cliff. That night, after the kids were in bed, Larry and I talked. Kelly, your brother isn't just irresponsible. He's taking advantage of your mom. I knew he was right. Scott was a tornado, and we were all in his path. The only question was how much damage he would do before he moved on. The next few days were a blur of Scott and Olivia making themselves at home. Olivia turned the living room into her personal lounge, always putting her feet up on Mom's antique coffee table. Scott spent his days on his phone, laughing at things no one else found funny. Mom was running around, trying to keep up, making meals, cleaning up after them, and never getting a thank you. It was like watching someone slowly deflate. One evening, I found Mom alone in the kitchen, looking older than her years. Mom, you can't let them walk all over you, I said. She sighed, Kelly, he's my son, and that's my grandbaby. I can't turn them away. I wanted to scream, to tell her she was being used, but I bit my tongue. Family is complicated, and sometimes love means turning a blind eye, even when you know you shouldn't. That's how our new normal began, Scott and Olivia, the ungrateful guests, and the rest of us trying to keep the peace in a house that suddenly felt too small. Little did I know, this was just the calm before the storm. Living with Scott and Olivia turned our lives upside down. Every morning started with Olivia's loud complaints about her backache or cravings. She'd stroll into the kitchen in her pajamas, demanding breakfast like she owned the place. Kelly, make me some of those pancakes, will you? The baby's craving them, she'd say, without even a please. I'd grit my teeth, trying to keep my cool. Sure, Olivia, let me just get Lauren and Eric ready for school first. Scott was no help either. He'd be lounging on the couch, his feet up on the coffee table, glued to his laptop or gaming. Hey, when's breakfast? He'd yell, not even bothering to look up. Mom tried to play peacemaker. Kelly, they're just young. Remember how we were? I wasn't having it. Mom, we never acted like entitled brats, but she just waved me off, scurrying to wait on them hand and foot. Things got worse as Olivia's due date approached. She'd leave a trail of mess wherever she went, dishes piled up, laundry forgotten, and there she'd be, on the phone gossiping for hours. One day, I snapped. I found her in the living room, her feet once again on the coffee table, talking loudly to a friend. And then I told Scott, we need a new car, something safe for the baby, I marched in. Olivia, This isn't a hotel. You can't expect everyone to clean up after you. She rolled her eyes. Chill, Kelly, I'm pregnant, remember. Scott finally spoke up. Kelly, lay off her. Can't you see she's carrying my kid? I shot back. Being pregnant doesn't give you a free pass to be a slob, Scott. Mom came in, wringing her hands. Please, let's not fight. It's not good for the baby. I looked at Mom, her face drawn and tired. This isn't right, Mom. You're wearing yourself out for them. Mom wouldn't listen. Their family, Kelly. What can we do? The days dragged on. Scott and Olivia would disappear for hours, leaving Mom to clean up their mess. They'd return with shopping bags, laughing about their day out. One evening, I heard them planning a lavish wedding. We need the best, babe. It's our day, Scott said, his arm around Olivia. Olivia giggled. Of course, and your mom can help with the expenses, right? I couldn't believe my ears. I confronted them. You're planning a wedding you can't afford and expecting Mom to pay for it. Scott shrugged. Why not? She's got the money. I was livid. You can't keep using Mom like your personal ATM, Scott. My words fell on deaf ears. They just laughed and continued their planning, leaving me fuming. Life in Mom's house had gone from bad to unbearable. Olivia had given birth to a baby boy, Jerry. You'd think that would slow them down, but no, it only gave them more excuses. One morning, I walked into the kitchen to find Mom washing a mountain of dishes. Olivia was sprawled on the sofa, cooing at Jerry, while Scott played some game on his phone. Morning, Mom. Why are you doing all these dishes? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom just sighed. Olivia needs to rest, and Scott's busy. I glanced at Olivia. Busy doing what? Olivia, you can't just leave everything to Mom. Olivia shot me a look. I just had a baby, Kelly. I'm not supposed to stress myself. Scott didn't even look up. Yeah, Kelly, back off. You don't know how hard it is. I couldn't believe it. Hard? You call sitting on your butt all day hard? Mom tried to calm things down. It's okay, Kelly. I don't mind. But I was past caring. No, it's not okay. You're not their servant. It was like talking to a wall. Scott and Olivia just didn't care. They'd leave the house for hours, leaving Mom to take care of Jerry. They'd come back with bags of clothes and gadgets, bragging about their great deals. One day, I found a receipt on the table for a designer dress for Olivia. It cost more than what most people make in a week. I confronted them. Scott, where did you get the money for this? And why is Mom paying for your lifestyle? Scott shrugged, not bothered. She's our mom, Kelly. She wants to help. I was furious. Help? You're bleeding her dry. Olivia smirked and chimed in. If she's willing, why not? Besides, what's it to you? I couldn't take it anymore. I had to talk to Mom alone. Mom, you can't keep giving them money. They're using you. Mom just shook her head. I can't abandon them, Kelly, especially not Jerry. I tried to reason with her, but they're not even trying to be responsible. Scott's not looking for a job, and Olivia's just spending your money like water. Mom looked away, her voice barely a whisper. I know, Kelly, but they're my children. I have to help them. I felt helpless, watching my family fall apart. Scott and Olivia were like leeches, draining everything and giving nothing back. And Mom, bless her heart, was too kind to see it. I didn't know how much more I could take. The breaking point was near, and I feared what would happen when we finally reached it. Things took a turn for the worse when Mom suddenly fell ill. It happened so fast. One day she was her usual self, and the next she was bedridden, looking frail and weak. I was at her bedside, holding her hand. Mom, you're going to get through this, I whispered, trying to sound more hopeful than I felt. She gave me a tired smile. I'm just worn out, Kelly. I've lived a good life. Scott and Olivia were nowhere to be seen, probably out spending more of Mom's money. I couldn't hide my anger anymore. Where are they, Mom? Why aren't they here helping? Mom's eyes were sad. They have their own lives, Kelly. Don't be too hard on them. But I couldn't let it go. Their own lives? They're living off you, Mom, and now when you need them the most, they're absent. Mom just sighed. It broke my heart to see her like this, defeated and alone. Then the inevitable happened. Mom passed away quietly one night, with me by her side. Scott and Olivia were out, probably having the time of their lives, oblivious to the tragedy unfolding at home. The funeral was a blur. I remember seeing Scott and Olivia arrive at the funeral, looking like they were going to a party instead of mourning a loss. Olivia's dress was too short and flashy even for a funeral. People were whispering, and Larry squeezed my hand, trying to comfort me. After the service, Scott pulled me aside. "Kelly, we need to talk about Mom's will." I was still in shock from losing Mom. "Now? Can't this wait, Scott?" He was insistent. "No, it can't. I know she left the house to me. We need to sort this out." I couldn't believe his audacity. "Scott, Mom just died. Can't you show a little respect?" But Scott was relentless. "This is important, Kelly. I'm her son. I deserve it." The day after the funeral, I went to Mom's house to start sorting through her things. When I got there, Olivia answered the door with a smug look. "What do you want, Kelly?" she sneered. I was taken aback. I came to collect some of Mom's things. Olivia laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "Oh, you didn't hear. This is our house now. Scott got everything." Scott appeared behind her, grinning. "Yeah, Kelly, Mom changed her will. The house, the money, it's all mine." I felt a surge of anger and disbelief. "You're lying. Mom would never do that." Scott shrugged. "Believe what you want, but the will is clear. This is my house now." I stood there on the doorstep of the house I grew up in, feeling like a stranger. The realization hit me hard. Not only had I lost my mother, but now I was losing my childhood home to my greedy brother and his manipulative wife. As I walked away, I knew this wasn't the end. I had to fight back for Mom, for my family, and for what was right. But little did I know, the battle ahead would be tougher than anything I'd faced before. I was a bundle of nerves as I walked into the notary's office. The whole situation felt like a bad dream. Losing Mom was hard enough, but fighting with Scott over her will was something I never imagined. The notary, Mr. Richard, was an old family friend. He looked up as I entered, his face somber. "Kelly, I'm sorry for your loss. Let's get straight to the matter at hand." I nodded, trying to steady my voice. "Mr. Richard, Scott says Mom left everything to him. That can't be true." Mr. Richard shuffled some papers. "Well, let's see what the will says." Scott and Olivia walked in just then, all smugness and arrogance. Olivia gave me a triumphant smirk. "Ready to lose, Kelly?" I ignored her and focused on Mr. Richard. He cleared his throat and began reading the will. My heart was pounding in my chest. "And to my son Scott, I leave." I braced myself for the worst. The sum of $4,000. Scott's face fell. "What? That's it." Mr. Richard continued, "And to my daughter Kelly, I leave the family home and the remainder of my estate." I couldn't believe it. Relief and disbelief washed over me. Olivia was furious. "That's impossible. She promised us the house." Mr. Richard looked at them sternly. "There's more. It appears your mother made this last will a month ago, after expressing concerns about undue pressure from certain family members." Scott was red with anger. She wanted me to have the house." I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. "Mom knew what you were doing, Scott. She knew you were using her." Scott turned to me, his eyes blazing. "You did this. You turned her against me." Olivia chimed in, her voice shrill. "We'll contest this. We'll get a lawyer." Mr. Richard raised an eyebrow. "You're free to do so, but be aware if it's found that there was any coercion involved in the previous will. There could be legal consequences." Scott and Olivia looked at each other, their confidence wavering. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in months. "Mom saw through your greed. She made sure her last wishes were respected." Scott stormed out, cursing under his breath, with Olivia trailing behind him. I stayed back, thanking Mr. Richard. As I left the office, I felt a mix of emotions. sadness for losing Mom, relief that her last wishes were honored, and a lingering anger at Scott and Olivia's audacity. It was a regular afternoon when Scott stormed into the house, his face red with anger and disbelief. $200,000 for you, and just a measly $4,000 for me? How is that fair, Kelly? I was sorting through some of Mom's papers, but his outburst made me pause. Scott, that's what Mom decided. You know she always had her reasons. He slammed his hand on the table, making me jump. Reasons? What reasons could she possibly have to screw me over like this? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. Maybe because you and Olivia have been bleeding her dry for years. Scott's face contorted with rage. That's not fair. We deserve that money. That's when I found it, tucked away in a drawer, a letter from Mom. Her handwriting was unmistakable. I pulled it out and started reading. Scott's eyes were fixed on me, a mix of curiosity and fear. What's that? It's from Mom. I said, my voice steady. She explains everything here. The letter laid it out clearly. Mom had originally set aside $200,000 each for Scott and me, but as Scott and Olivia kept asking for money, she started deducting from his share. I looked up at Scott, his face shocked. By the time she wrote her last will, you'd already taken $96,000, Scott. There was only $4,000 left. Scott staggered back as if he'd been hit. No, that can't be true. I felt a surge of anger. It's all yours, Scott. Every cent you and Olivia took came out of your inheritance. He looked lost, his eyes darting around the room. But I didn't know. That's the problem, Scott. You never knew or cared to know. I snapped, my patience wearing thin. He slumped into a chair, burying his face in his hands. What have I done, Kelly? I put the letter down, feeling a mix of pity and frustration. You only got yourself to blame, Scott. You chose this path. Scott left the house that day a broken man. I watched him go, feeling a sense of justice, but also a deep sadness. Our family was torn apart not just by grief, but by greed and ignorance. The house, once a battleground of family feuds, was now eerily quiet. Scott and Olivia had left, cutting off all contact with me. It was both a relief and a curse, leaving me to deal with the aftermath of their chaos. As I sat in the living room, staring at the walls that had witnessed so much, my friend Nancy called. Kelly, have you heard about Scott? I braced myself. No, what now? She hesitated. He's been spotted around town, looking for jobs. And Olivia? She's been seen with different men, flaunting around like she's single. My heart sank. And Jerry, their son. No sign of him, Kelly. It's like they've forgotten they have a child. I slammed my fist on the table, fury boiling inside me. They're irresponsible and selfish. They don't deserve a child. Nancy tried to calm me. Kelly, maybe there's something you can do. Her words sparked an idea. You're right. I'll fight for Jerry. He shouldn't suffer because of them. The next day, I met with a lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Miss Michelle. I explained everything, my voice trembling with determination. So, you want to pursue custody of your nephew? Miss Michelle asked, her eyes sharp. I nodded firmly. Yes, he's in a toxic environment. I want to give him a better life. Miss Michelle leaned forward. It won't be easy, Kelly, but if you're ready to fight, I'm with you. I felt a surge of determination. I'm ready, whatever it takes. The legal battle that followed was tough. Scott and Olivia were unpredictable, sometimes cooperative, sometimes hostile, but I didn't back down. One evening, after a particularly hard day in court, Larry wrapped his arms around me. You're doing the right thing, Kelly. It's hard but right. I leaned into his embrace, exhausted but hopeful. I just want Jerry to be safe, to have a family that cares. The day the judge granted me temporary custody of Jerry was bittersweet. He was a sweet boy, confused and scared, but he slowly opened up to us. Lauren and Eric adored him, and he brought a new kind of joy into our home. Scott's reaction was a mix of anger and defeat. You've taken everything from me, Kelly. I faced him, my voice steady. "I'm protecting Jerry, something you should have done." As Scott stormed off, I realized our relationship might never be repaired. But this wasn't about us. It was about a little boy who needed a stable home. Life with Jerry was a new adventure. There were challenges, of course, but also laughter and love. He was becoming a part of our family, and I was determined to make it permanent. Looking back, I knew I'd made the right decision. It was time for new beginnings for all of us, a chance to heal, grow, and build a future filled with love and stability. That was the legacy I wanted to leave, a stark contrast to the selfishness and greed that had once threatened to tear us apart. The house, once a reminder of family discord, was now filled with laughter and the pitter-patter of little feet. Jerry had become a part of our lives, his presence a constant source of joy and wonder. One evening, as we were tucking him into bed, he looked up at me with those big innocent eyes. "Aunt Kelly, am I going to stay here forever?" I smoothed his hair, my heart swelling. "Yes, Jerry, you're part of our family now." He smiled, his tiny hand gripping mine. "I like it here. Lauren and Eric are fun." I kissed his forehead. "We love having you here, sweetie." I walked out of his room. Larry was waiting with a proud smile on his face. "He's really settling in, isn't he?" I nodded, feeling accomplished. "He is. We're giving him the life he deserves." The next day, I received a call from Miss Michelle. "Kelly, it's official. The court has granted you full custody of Jerry." I nearly dropped the phone, tears of happiness welling up. "Thank you, Miss Michelle. Thank you for everything." After hanging up, I shared the news with the family. Lauren and Eric cheered, hugging Jerry in a group embrace. Even Larry had tears in his eyes. "We're a family," Larry said, his voice choked with emotion. "A real, complete family." The journey had been long and full of challenges, but we had come out stronger. I thought about Scott and Olivia, wherever they were. I hoped they would find their way, but my focus was now on the children, our family. In the months that followed, Jerry blossomed. He was no longer the timid boy we first met. He was confident, happy, and loved. One day, while we were all in the garden, Jerry came running up to me with a dandelion in his hand. "Look, Aunt Kelly, I made a wish." I crouched down to his level. "And what did you wish for?" He grinned, his eyes sparkling. "I wished we'd all be together forever." I hugged him tight. "That's the best wish, Jerry, and it's come true." As I looked around at my family, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had weathered the storm and emerged stronger. Our future was filled with hope, love, and the promise of new beginnings. This was our story, a testament to the strength of family and the power of love. It was a future of hope, and we were ready to embrace it with open arms.